We sell thousands of pianos every single year. And if I go back, say, 10 years, the proportion of digital pianos that we were selling to acoustics was probably in our range 30 to 40%. Then about 5 years ago, we crossed a really important threshold of about 50%. And this last year, it has now crept up to 60% of all pianos that we sell are digital. So what's driving this? Well, I've broken this down into 10 reasons why I think digital pianos are going to continue tipping the balance away from acoustics, at least in terms of beginner, entry level, and maybe even mid-range instruments. So first off, and this might be quite obvious, but it's price. Now, digital pianos aren't specifically cheap anymore. There are a lot of digital pianos that are up into the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Here's one for $26,000. So they really do overlap with acoustic pianos, but it's what you're getting for the money. And if we take $5,000 that is spent on a digital piano, compare that to an acoustic, or even more exaggeratedly, if we go below that point to say $2,000 or $3,000, and then compare what you get on the acoustic side for that, you've got a digital piano which is simply delivering, in a lot of cases, a better, more consistent musical experience than what you're going to get on the acoustic side. And for the needs of a very beginning student, particularly a young one, that price can obviously drop to $1,000 or below in terms of an instrument that is really going to suffice quite well for the first few years of their piano journey. So the threshold at which you're getting a reasonable, consistent, and truly musical experience in terms of price is now quite a bit lower on the digital side than it ever will be on the acoustic side. Now, our next point is what I'm going to call tonal consistency. How consistent do each note sound as you're moving from the bottom of an instrument through the mid-range and up to the top? Are the notes sounding quite similar to each other in terms of the adjacent notes, or as you transition from one range to another? Or do you have notes that are really sticking out, or some that sound metallic, some that sound dead? And when we are talking about digital pianos in, say, the $1,000 to $5,000 range, and now comparing that to acoustic, you simply get a more consistent tone out of the digital piano than you do on an acoustic of that same price range. And why is that? Most digital pianos, with the exception of maybe Roland when you're getting up into that higher price range, are just taking recordings of the very best acoustic pianos out there, and they are capturing them and bottling them up so you can access them one note at a time in a digital format. What's really changed over the last few years isn't just what they have sampled, but the realism with which they can now reproduce that through better amplifiers, better speakers, and more layers, or in other words, more versions or permutations of how that sound should be captured and then replayed. So as an example, if we take a look, or listen rather, to this baby grand piano and just the bottom 2 octaves of this instrument, you're going to hear how frequently there are inconsistencies from note to note in terms of the character and really just how it presents itself. So a lot of instances where certain notes really are standing out. Some are unexpectedly more metallic, some are unexpectedly more thuddy, some have a more brassy tone, some really don't ring very long. And this is quite common in low to mid-range, shorter instruments, both grands and uprights. Now, when we compare that to a digital piano, what you're going to get is a perfectly even stretch of tone right through not just that register, but the entire piano. Next on my list, do digital pianos require maintenance? And if we're talking about acoustics, then maintenance mostly is made up of the need to constantly be tuning the instrument. Because as we know, acoustic pianos usually require tuning 1 to 2 times a year. If you let it go too much further than that, you really wind up with sour, inconsistent notes where you're getting a chorus effect or that honky-tonk sound as those strings often clustered in threes, twos, and only really just one string per note in the bass, you get those strings that are getting out of sync with each other. And then you hear that clash. And that's what an out-of-tune piano is. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Same thing happens with guitars or violins or any other string instrument, really. But on digital pianos, there's literally no maintenance that's required to keep the instrument in tune. Now, once you get into some hybrid digitals, which we're really not talking about too much in this video, way up into, say, the $10,000 range, there may be some mechanical maintenance and re-regulating or readjusting that has to be done later in its lifetime. But if we're talking about mainstream digital pianos, literally the only thing you have to do is make sure it's not in an ultra dusty environment. Other than that, there's really no regular maintenance or consideration that you need to perform on digitals. So the next reason I think people are shifting more and more is that the actions on digital pianos have become quite realistic, and more than just realistic, they're more consistent and require less maintenance. If you take, for instance, this wooden action that you'll find in digital pianos of certain manufacturers, in this case, we're taking a look at one from Kawai, we have something where literally there's no simulation of the length or the geometry of the key. They've actually just taken a real acoustic piano key and attached a simplified hammer mechanism to it. And the sense of weighting and feel and control that you have with this action is going to be on par with a basic acoustic upright piano. Next for me has to be the dramatic improvement in dynamic response that digital pianos are now giving us as musicians. And by dynamic response, we're talking about the volume output of the instrument and the range of that volume output. Up until fairly recently, digital pianos had a very narrow dynamic range. And so one of the big hits against them is that even though you could physically learn technique at a basic level, it was nearly impossible for you to learn how to control the kind of volume range that an acoustic would throw at you. That simply isn't the case anymore. And you have numerous digital pianos from all the major manufacturers, as soon as you get sort of up into about the $3,000 range and above, where you have amplifier systems delivering over 100 watts of rated power. And that starts to get you into the same ballpark as a smaller, medium-sized upright piano. And so you're able to have a student genuinely learn how to control acoustic piano type volumes on a digital. Next on our list is something the digital pianos have always had as an advantage, which is you can play them with headphones. This may have always been the case, but the relevance and importance of that feature, to me, is only growing. More and more people are inhabiting urban cores. You've got condos and townhouses that are now consistently at or below 1,000 square feet, and the ability to plug in a set of headphones and still have an awesome sonic experience while playing your digital piano is as important as it's ever been. Next on the list is connectivity and the ability to have these instruments really integrate into our modern digital lives. If we take a look at this, for example, every conceivable possible input, both hardware and wireless, exist on an instrument like this. We really have a situation where these instruments are designed to completely integrate themselves into our digital lives. Next on the list is one of my favorites, and it's the ability to customize your piano experience on even the most basic digital pianos. Because there's no point in having a piano, digital or acoustic, that doesn't inspire and excite you to want to play it. And the easiest way to make sure the instrument's inspiring you is to customize the sound to something that your ear absolutely loves. And when we take a look at the major manufacturers such as Kawai, Roland, and Yamaha, they all have external apps, or in some cases, the onboard ability to get in and really customize virtually every aspect of the piano tone. How much hammer noise you're hearing, some of the other mechanical artifacts like pedal noise, cabinet resonance, string resonance, the list is a long one. In some cases, up to 20 parameters can be edited. Next, there's no getting around, digital pianos are smaller. They take up less space, they weigh less, and they are easier to place in more places in your home, office, or business. And then finally on our list, they're portable. And while we normally think of portable as being something that a professional musician needs, say strap it under their arm and take it off to a performance or a show, it's just as valuable to non-performers or non-musicians who want to have the ability to move it from one room to another, or maybe transport it to a cottage for the summer months. Or if you've got family members who are transitioning back and forth between homes, the ability to easily take an instrument with you. Even something like this weighs 1/4 to 1/10 as much as the acoustic equivalent would be. And that just opens up the number of possibilities, times, and places where these can be enjoyed. And for me, the best instruments are instruments that are getting played. So thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on why the digital piano revolution just continues to steam along. My name's Stu Harrison. This has been Merriam Pianos on YouTube. We really appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care.